everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on today's show, Dan, enemies. Or maybe frenemies.
Sure. Adversaries.
No.
Yes. We're gonna be talking about who are your enemies?
Who are your enemies?
Do you have enemies?
Yeah.
You have enemies. Or do you?
I don't know. Yeah.
It's something I've given a lot of thought to.
Yeah.
And what we won't be doing is coming to solid conclusions about anything.
Oh, boy. It's one of those. All right.
It'll be a good discussion, I think.
Coming up today.
Coming up, Frank and Dan get nothing accomplished.
Of consequence.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a frenemy, though? Little side note.
I mean, I think kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I've definitely had sort of friends that I knew were like just sort of friends and would backstab if they needed to or whatever, if it were expedient to them in the least.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a frenemy, right?
Yeah, I feel like I've had a frenemy before.
Yeah.
One in particular.
Oh yeah. Is it the same one?
It probably is the same one. I believe we're thinking of the same person.
Yeah. That person is frenemies.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Look
Yes.
at your face, Dan.
I know it's trim-er.
What happened?
Well, I've got a play coming up, we're sort of exploring looks.
Okay.
I don't know what we're going to do just yet.
And so for the meantime, you're going to be shaven?
I'm trimmed.
Okay.
Very tightly trimmed. It's more of a shadow, 5 o'clock shadow now, and then we'll decide where it goes from there.
Oh, wow.
Might go less, might go more. Might be
Okay.
clean, might be bearded.
And if you go clean, how are you going to get it clean?
Well, Frank, thank you for that question. I appreciate it. What I will do is use Harrys.com. Did you know, Frank, that Harrys.com can serve all of your face shaving needs?
It's amazing, but it's
Should
true.
we do the whole thing like that?
No.
I would love that. No, okay, so you guys know, you've heard it from us. We're going to say it again because a whole bunch of you have not even tried it. Seriously, just try it. It's great. It's free. So it's free. So what you do, you go to harrys.com, harrys.com/TGIA. Mm-hmm. You will get you get the handle. We're going to build this from the ground up.
Okay.
Ergonomic handle.
Yeah.
Which, we're not kidding. It's actually just a nicer handle than you get with other blades. You get the cartridge head with 5 premium German-engineered blades.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And 1 trimmer blade on the back
Yeah.
for fun
Yeah.
and profit.
Yeah.
And then you get the nice shave gel that you and I love. That's got the good smell and stuff. You get the
travel protector
travel thing. All of that is free. You pay for shipping. That's it. You get the thing. You try it out. If you like it, you keep it. You keep it going, and it just comes to your house, and you never have to worry about it again.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you cancel, and it's fine. You just got free stuff because you know your favorite atheist podcast hosts.
Yeah.
You know us. We hooked you up,
Indeed.
and now you're doing it. So please just give it a try. Go to harrys.com/TGIA and get your free stuff today.
Sounds good.
Ba-da-bum.
Sounds good, Dan.
There you go.
All right. I want to start with a story about a construction worker
Okay.
up in Oregon.
This sounds like a lie that someone at church tells. I'm going to tell you about a story about a construction worker. So far, that's what it sounds like.
Well,
But I'm going to believe that it's true.
He he got a job at Dolled Up Construction. That's DAHLED.
Oh, okay.
Dolled.
Because I was picturing a whole drag construction thing, which I was really enjoying, but you've ruined it.
Anyway, he got this job fixing up homes. That's what this construction company does. Sounds like they're kind of a flipper flippy sort of place. Maybe.
Sure.
I might be wrong about that, but they definitely fix up homes. And the owner, Joel Dahl, requires that all of his employees participate in a regular weekly Bible study session on the clock.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
He brings in a Christian pastor.
I like a pasture.
Yeah, a Christian pastor. No. And initially, Ryan Coleman, he's the one who's suing Joel Dahl. He told him that the requirement was illegal. And Dahl wouldn't budge.
Wouldn't believe him.
And he's just like, nope, this is if you want to keep your job, you have to do this, right?
You come here about Jesus.
So after about 6 months of going to this class unwillingly, he goes to Dahl and he says, I've kept an open mind. It's just not my thing. And so Dahl says, well, I'm going to have to replace you.
Wow.
And he said, you're not going to tell me how to run my own company. And so Coleman replied, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not telling you how to run your company, but you're not going to tell me what God to pray to.
Yeah.
Coleman is, his religious beliefs are indigenous.
Oh.
He's half Caucasian and half Native American.
Okay.
And he participates in indigenous religious practices. And what's kind of a little fucked up about this is that dolled up construction is what is called a second chance employer. These are guys who've served some time in prison.
Sure.
Joel Dahl himself served time in prison. When he got out, he ultimately opened up this construction company with the hopes of helping out other
ex-cons.
Ex-cons. And so here's this guy who doesn't have a lot of employment options. And that's why he stuck it out for about 6 months. Well, he, like I said before, he is suing. And, it's super illegal. This is not cool. But this is what the religious right would love to see a lot more of. And would be told, like, the wrong set of judges and the wrong Supreme Court lets this kind of thing stand.
Well, and also, like, the religious right has lawyers standing in the wings to support guys like companies like this.
Yeah, and to turn them into Supreme Court cases.
Does Coleman, is that his name? Does he have any help from ACLU or anything like that?
I think he's just got himself a good little employment lawyer.
Okay.
There was no there was no real hint of like who this lawyer is aside from the person that he's hired to represent him.
Yeah, I do wonder though. I mean, like, surely if a church is employing someone, they could do it. They could have a requirement like this. Right. So
a private employer cannot.
I'm just trying to figure out like where the difference is. Like if it's in,
because there's an exemption for that religious organization to do it.
Okay.
Because the law, you can't require your employees to participate in something like this.
Yeah, it does seem. It's just, if
wrong.
nothing else,
also because it's not his faith. It's not his faith. He's being,
right.
Like, it'd be one thing to say, you know what, I'm going to give you guys some free time to go read your inspirational book of choice,
and I would like to provide you for free with look at all these Bibles.
Right.
Oops, that's all I've got.
And maybe you could even say, you know what, and I pay this pastor to show up once a week. And if you want to, you can go sit and listen on his thing.
You can either do some work. You can either work or you can sit and listen to the pastor.
Right.
That would be okay. Maybe.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Hell, that's what the fucking military does. The military of these United States of America.
True. Yeah. No, I'm sure there's a way that the guy could get a little religion in there in his company without infringing upon the rights of the workers.
Without being a dick. How about that? Like,
you either do this or I'm letting you go.
He's
What a fucking
participating.
asshole.
I mean, he's participating in the age-old American tradition of trying to civilize the savages. Is basically what he's doing. I'm bringing Jesus to these horrible Indians.
Well, I don't think it was because he was Native American. I just think that
I'm just saying.
Yeah, he is trying to. He's trying to do some good in the world. He's employing guys who need a second chance, right?
Yeah,
but don't do that.
Don't do that. All right. Well, I am going to take us to England, where there was where the Russian feminist punk activist group Pussy Riot.
Oh my God. What a name, Dan.
Has recently performed. Now, you'll recall Pussy Riot as being the ones who... These ladies, they made international headlines when they went to a very important Russian Orthodox church in Moscow. Sort of slammed their way in and like performed there uninvited.
Oh boy!
Screaming about bringing down Putin and sort of the connection between the Russian government and the church, which I will be discussing later in the show. Also,
wow,
yeah,
tie-ins, Dan.
I'm tying it in, baby. Anyway, what I found most fascinating about this is that they are performing at a festival called Greenbelt, which is the foremost Christian arts festival in the UK.
Interesting.
Yeah.
An Christian arts festival.
Yeah.
And they're there.
And it's Pussy Riot headlining.
There's a lot that's hard to wrap your head around with this.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I was so sort of blown away. But
do they know it's not cats that they're talking about?
Cats?
Pussy.
Oh, right.
The name.
Yeah,
That's like a Christian event having something called Pussy Riot. That's what I'm like, what?
Even cats, I would feel like the word riot would be a little frightening to them.
It's a kitty riot.
Those kitties are just a riot. No, somehow they got booked. I mean, so Maria Aloykina, I don't know how to say that, is one of the originals that did. She went to 3 years of hard labor camp.
Yeah,
out in Siberia or in the Ural Mountains or something.
God.
Taken away from her young son and stuff, but she still identifies as Christian, which I think is fascinating.
Okay.
So they went and performed. They had a big video playing behind them that was showing their time, sort of freaking out all the evangelicals, all of the Orthodox Christians.
Yeah.
And sort of talking about their very, they are activists and they are disruptive activists.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, she had to sneak out of the country just to go play this thing.
Oh,
she literally, they wouldn't let her on a plane because she was because she had to serve 100 hours of community service for a thing, and so she drove out of the country at an unchecked.
Oh my God!
Part of the border, and then took a plane from another country.
And they're not going to find out?
No, they're going to find out. I'm guessing she's got more community service to do when she gets home or something. I don't know.
Oh my God.
This girl is punk as shit.
She is serious about this.
She is not messing around. And apparently, but apparently she sees her activism as a Christian act.
Good for her.
She's railing against Christian, against what she sees as a corrupt religious organization, which I agree with her.
Yeah.
They pretty much all are.
Sure.
Once you get to, anyway.
As soon as you involve money.
Yeah. And power. Anyway, I just found that whole kettle of fish to be very, very strange. So there you go, Pussy Riot.
It's not at all what I thought it was.
Headlining.
It might be kittens.
It might be Kittens.
They might be actually talking about kittens.
Do you remember that sort of pseudo punk band? They Might Be Kittens. That was a good band. What? Just a joke. Don't. They might be giants. I don't know. I was just going along with the thing. I was just going along. All
right. Well, that's a thing, Dan. I like to bring up a little Pope Francis update. I don't know if you know, Dan, but this last week he kind of stepped in it.
Oh my God! By it, do you mean Ireland?
Well,
because that's what he's.
Yes,
part of what he stepped in.
This is where all this happened. He was asked his opinion on what parents should do if their children appear to be homosexual.
Oh, right.
This thing,
yeah.
Right? And he says, when it shows itself from childhood, there's a lot that can be done through psychiatry to see how things are. It is something else if it shows itself after 20 years. So apparently there's like early onset homosexuality, right? And that's the stuff that's like treatable.
That can be cured.
That can be, yeah. You whisk them off to a psychiatrist.
Right, yeah.
Late onset homosexuality, you're kind of just screwed.
Something tells me somebody wasn't checking in with the psychiatrists before he started blathering out of his fucking mouth.
Well, nonetheless, people fucking freaked out.
Yeah.
Because this is essentially some kind of he's condoning reparative therapy in that statement. Right. And which, of course, we know is really damaging psychologically to anybody who's ever been through it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work.
No.
Yeah, well, the Vatican has decided to remove those lines from all official transcripts of the event.
That's really interesting, because what's funny is that one of the things that's happening a lot in the Vatican right now is that the entity called, quote, the Vatican is usually when they remove stuff that he said, it's stuff that's like hyper liberal, that's like reform stuff. Usually it's stuff like, if a gay person seeks after the Lord, who am I to judge him?
Right.
Which he also said.
Right.
So usually that's the stuff that is sort of rocking all the conservatives' worlds.
Right.
So interesting that now they're sort of shuffling away the thing that's...
It might just be that whenever he says something controversial.
Yeah.
No matter who's getting their... themselves all in an uproar. So this is an official spokeswoman. When the Pope referred to...
Wait, did you just say a woman?
I know.
What?
What's going on? I'm sure she's a nun.
What is happening?
I don't know that she's a nun. Anyway, when the Pope referred to psychiatry, it is clear that what he was doing... that he was doing it to highlight an example of, quote, things that can be done. But with that word, he didn't mean to say that homosexuality is a mental illness. That's what they're saying, right?
That is what Sarah Pontificate Sanders is saying. I mean, that sounds like an equivocation that
oh, yeah.
Huckabee Sanders would
absolutely
totally come up with.
Ridiculous. But apparently at this same event, because this is the World Meeting of Families, that was where this happened. Apparently there was
my family wasn't invited. That's rude.
No, there was some very interesting things going on at this event. There was a speaker by the name of Father James Martin, who's a Jesuit priest, who has garnered controversy for his outreach to the LGBT community. During his remarks, which were focused on how the church can be more welcoming to LGBT folk, Father Martin took issue with the idea of sexual orientation being a choice, actually. Right. So at this same event, there were very there were people who were talking about inclusivity,
Right.
Of gay people in Catholicism.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know that I fully understand where the Catholic Church is at right now.
I think that's the problem. Is that the Catholic Church doesn't fully understand where it's at on this issue.
Yeah.
There might be a schism coming in the Catholic Church. I've been hearing some really fascinating reports. Did you hear the thing about the letter that a former archbishop sent, that basically accusing, and this is sort of when the Pope was already on his heels because his trip to Ireland was a disaster.
Right.
And then this letter comes out that's like, the Pope knew about this cardinal and knew about all of the the kiddie diddling that he had been doing before.
Good Lord.
And so but that comes as a sort of backlash against this Pope's supposed liberal like his willingness to talk about, gay people being not horrible, and
right.
He's been talking about maybe letting divorced people get remarried and all of this other stuff, and like maybe divorce isn't the worst thing in the world, and
right.
changing sort of how the Eucharist, what do they call it? Their whatever their sacrament is, the communion. How that's delivered, because I mean, at one point he made a comment about like divorced people should be able to receive communion because it's not, and I kind of loved this. He was like, it's not a prize for being good, for acting good. It's it's a sacrament for all, and it was just this really interesting thing. But those people who want the church that they grew up with to remain the same are flipping out. So, there's a war happening. Who knows? Maybe they might skiz.
Skiz.
There might be some schism.
I love a good skiz.
Yeah. You know what else you love, Frank?
What's that?
A poll. You love polls.
Numbers.
I know you love them. I know you do. Pew has decided to look. Pew regularly looks at religion and these United States.
Oh yeah.
The Pew Foundation or whatever they're called. And they've got a new one which breaks down differently than most of theirs. What they've done is because usually they like to separate things out into categories of people.
Right.
But their categories are sloppy. Like, what is a Christian? And, so they have to separate Christian into a whole bunch of different categories.
Right.
There's Catholic Christian and there's, evangelical. But evangelical doesn't have a solid definition because there's 20 different kinds of that. And,
right.
All of this stuff. And, then there are the nuns. But the nuns include, like, hardcore atheists and agnostics, and then like people who just don't attend church,
right,
or don't believe in an organized religion, but believe in God or whatever. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like they don't have an affiliation, but they have strong beliefs. They can still be. And how are those guys in the same category as us? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So they've attempted to sort of look at that slightly differently this time. And what they've done is they've come up with 7 different categories.
Oh,
now, trust me, you'll have objections to these categories as well, but they're interesting to look at.
Okay.
Those categories are Sunday stalwarts, who are religious traditionalists, actively involved with their faith and engaged with congregations.
Okay,
so most Mormons would fall under that.
Right.
Mormonism is unique in its demand of of being active.
Right.
I would imagine that Seventh Day Adventists and J-Dubs are similar.
Sure.
That sort of thing.
Okay.
Then you've got what they call God and country believers, who are actually more driven by their social and political conservativeness than they are by their belief in God, but it's all tied in with each other. Okay. So that's interesting.
Okay.
Then what they call diversely devout, who are traditionally religious, but also believe in a whole bunch of woo things like psychics and stuff.
Okay.
That is a fascinating thing. And then there's all these things, relaxed religious, spiritually awake. So this is a somewhat religious category. And then there's the non-religious category, which includes religion resistors, and then what they call the solidly secular.
Oh, okay.
I think you can figure out where you fall in that lineup.
Yeah.
So it has some interesting revelations. Things like when it looks at percent of people who in each of the category who believe in things like psychics, of the Sunday stalwarts, 32% believe in psychics.
What?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
God and country believers, 28%.
Okay. Oh, okay.
My favorite category has become the diversely devout people.
Okay.
Because they just believe in everything. Oh, you just ask them about anything and they believe in it.
I know people like that.
So yeah, 68% of them believe in psychics.
Oh my.
70, and then there's the spiritually awake category, which is like they only believe in the woo. They don't like they'll laugh at someone who believes in the Christian God or whatever, but
these people are found in the vitamin aisle at Whole Foods.
Right, exactly. In the holistic aisle.
Holistic aisle
at Whole Foods.
Okay.
Yeah. They believe in all
I didn't know that
things.
was a thing.
Oh my God.
Tells you how long it's been since I've been in a Whole
Here's an interesting category. Percent who believe spiritual energy can be located in physical objects.
Wait. That's a whole category?
That is one of the questions.
Oh, that's a question
that they asked.
Okay.
And each of these things. Now, that wouldn't make much sense to me until I heard the word crystals. But that's kind of what they're talking about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But of them,
sacred rocks and
29% of the Sunday stalwarts believe that spiritual energy can be located in physical objects. Maybe
sure, probably that cross that's around their neck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But here's an interesting one. And of course, of the diversely devout, 98% of them believe that, whatever spiritual energy.
Holy shit. Those people are nuts.
How many people, what percentage would you say of the God and country believers?
God and country believers believe that, I would think that it's on sort of the 1/3 amount believe in it.
I think that makes sense since Sunday stalwarts are about there.
Yeah.
0.
Like actually a 0?
0.
Fascinating.
Literally fewer.
I have more in common with God and country folks than I do with all these other people.
On that question.
Okay.
Also, the relaxed religious don't believe in that either.
Interesting.
That one goes just like up, down, up, down, up, down. It's crazy.
How bizarro.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the religion resistors and the spiritually awake are at 98 and 99%.
Okay.
It's so weird. People who believe in reincarnation.
Oh, boy.
So the Sunday stalwarts, you still got 19% who believe in reincarnation.
Of course. What a wonderful idea. I get to come back.
Yeah, except that, you've got your myth. Your mythology is laid out for you. Why are you adding another mythology to that?
Well, Jesus was reincarnated.
No, he was reanimated.
Oh, fair enough.
He was brought back. That's a thing.
Yeah. He was.
You know what? I'll bet that's it. They don't fucking know what that word means.
Yeah.
They don't know what reincarnation means. God and country believers, 21%. Diversely devout, of course, because they believe in everything. 60,
except science.
63%. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
They have their one thing they know.
Yeah. They
don't trust their doctor.
Don't trust a doctor. Don't trust a pharmacist.
Right. Instead, there's that person wearing an apron on that vitamin aisle.
If somebody has dreadlocks, they know how medicine works. Anyway, I just think it's interesting. And in all of these categories, the solidly secular is low.
Yeah, of course.
So there you go. People who believe in astrology.
How many of the solidly secular believe in reincarnation?
Actually 12%.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a solid section of them.
Huh. That's funny.
In terms of like astrology, solidly secular, you got 5% who believe in that. Cut it out. And then you've got, but it's low for everyone. For like the Sunday guys, the God and Country guys, it's low. It's at 16% for them. And then the diversely devout, the big believers, they only 57% of them. I would have thought that was higher, actually.
Huh.
And the, quote, spiritually awake people at 63. It won't surprise you to know there are demographic parts to this study. Those in our category, solidly secular, tend to be more educated. Shocker.
Really?
Yeah. In terms of who has graduated from college,
Yeah.
the solidly secular is by far the highest group, has the highest college graduates at 45% of them.
Wow. Okay.
With religious resistors sort of also in the non-religious category coming in at 40%.
Okay.
Those are by far leaps and bounds ahead.
What's the next best educated? God and Country?
No, God and Country is one of the lowest.
Interesting.
14% college graduates.
So God and Country, that's more sort of the political evangelicals? Is that kind of what's... Okay. Okay. So there was another one, though, that was like...
There's the diversely devout. Those are the people who believe everything. They are the least educated.
Yeah, of course they are. Yeah.
63% of them have high school or less. Wow. With only 12% as college graduates.
Wow.
Yeah. The relaxed religious is the next highest from us. And that's just sort of, they believe, but like, they definitely don't go to church every week.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Surprisingly, the Sunday stalwarts are at 30%. That's pretty strong. That's a pretty strong showing.
Maybe that was one I was thinking of. Okay.
in terms of college graduates.
Will you send this link to me, Dan?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to look through that.
To peruse.
Yeah, because these are kind of different. You're right. This approach and this defining these categories this way.
There's a lot to drill down into.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pew.
Thanks, Pew.
Thank Pew. Dan. There's a name that I am glad that I now know.
Oh.
Sam Young.
Oh, Sam. He's been standing downtown in Salt Lake City for a minute.
He has ended his hunger strike.
Okay.
He went for 23 days.
Good grief.
And if you don't know the name, you should. This is a man who is he's a devout Mormon.
Yeah. Who
is advocating for the youth of the church and trying to get a very bad practice of the church ended, which is these quote-unquote worthiness interviews. This is where a young person sits down in private with their bishop, right?
Yeah. Who's not a therapist.
Who's not a trained anything.
Doesn't know anything about anything.
For these one-on-one interviews. And the bishops have traditionally, there's questions that they're supposed to ask, and when it gets down to sort of the chastity or the purity ones, if the kid says that they've been up to something, they then ask very probing and personal questions about the masturbation or looking at pictures online.
Did you touch boobs?
Exactly. Stuff that's really none of their business.
Well, and not only so, the thing is that like.
It's damaging and shaming.
Yeah. And they're doing this. These interviews usually start around the age of 12.
That's when they start regularly, but yeah.
I mean,
but you have baptized.
Well, you have one at 8 when you're baptized too.
Yep.
Hopefully most kids haven't done anything. But like the other thing is that some kids may have explored, some other kid's body and whatever at 8. And also, as an adult who is not in the family, who is not trained in anything, don't ask a child about sex.
Right.
That is for someone else to deal with.
Well, nonetheless.
So that's what this guy is on about.
Sam Young.
Don't ask children about sex.
He founded the group Protect LDS Children.
Yeah.
and he is being called in for church discipline. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, well, there's a shock. He
essentially
complained and got a lot of press.
Essentially, by this time next week, he will be a former member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because the article just keeps talking about he's facing possible excommunication. No, he's going to be excommunicated.
He's facing definite excommunication.
Yeah. And by the way, I got this from Newsweek.
Yeah.
The story,
it's national.
And this isn't like they're kind of picking it up later on. They're following the story.
Right.
The story broke this morning, and it's already in the national media.
Yeah.
So the church is, golly gee, they can't seem to get right on this issue and just avoid all the bad press that Sam Young has done a really good job making sure that they get.
But here's what the media doesn't understand is that the church are the shepherds of morality. They are charged by God with the mandate of keeping their people morally clean. And by the way,
sussing out these stories about, masturbation.
How are these young masturbators going to get absolution from their sin if they don't tell a creepy old dude about it?
Right.
How is that even possible?
Yeah. So good on you, Sam Young.
Yeah.
Best. Yeah. I send you my best.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll get kicked out and then you'll realize that it was all stupid anyway from the beginning. I mean, he's in for some pain.
Oh yeah.
He's going to feel a lot. He already feels it, but there will be more. All right. Back to Russia for me. We are going to talk about one of my favorite names of a group that I've ever heard. Have you heard of Fancy Bear?
Fancy Bear.
Fancy Bear.
Ooh, Fancy Bear. Do you belong to Fancy Bear? Why, yes, I do belong to Fancy Bear.
Fancy Bear is the name of a group of Russian hackers. Who have been... They're the guys who tampered with our elections.
Oh, I hate these people.
Yeah, Fancy Bear. It's a delightful name for a very bad group of people.
No.
Probably connected to the Kremlin.
I hate them.
Yeah. But Fancy Bear hasn't just been trying to break into email of, U.S. Democrats, defense contractors, intelligence workers, even military wives.
Oh, my. They
also have been trying to crack into the Russian Orthodox Church.
Oh?
It's not surprising because the Russian Orthodox Church for a long time now has been lockstep buddy with the Russian government.
Oh.
And this is why Pussy Riot was against them in the first place. This is why they had their big thing, was because literally, they just sort of, it's such a cozy relationship between Putin and the Orthodox Church that it's one and the same. As a matter of fact, there's a quote here. I'm not going to be able to find it. There's a quote from a former prelate, I think, of the Russian Orthodox Church, who said, you can actually see the epaulets coming out under the habits of the Orthodox priests, which I think was a powerful way of looking at it. They're basically Russian agents at this point.
Wow.
And one of the things that's happening in the Orthodox Church right now is that the Ukraine part of the Russian Orthodox Church is trying to break away from because they've for the longest time they've been under the umbrella of the Russian Orthodox Church, but they don't want to be.
Okay.
In part because Russia keeps shitting on them and taking stuff from them.
Right.
So, yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want to be. And also, the Russian Orthodox Church is connected to the Russian government. So, they could send out some mandate that says you have to go along with this or whatever. So, anyway, the Ukrainian Orthodox leaders have been going to they call him the first among equals, but he's sort of the de facto head of the Orthodox Christian Church, who is Bartholomew the First, the ecumenical Orthodox patriarch. By the way, if you guys don't know how these guys dress, you really need to look it up. It's delightful. They got the best beards. They got all the good hats and robes and stuff. They look like wizards. It's amazing. Anyway, so Bartholomew the First, who is, I think he's in Istanbul, Turkey.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, that's where he is. And like Ukrainians and Russians have been sort of bouncing back and forth, like lobbying for their position, trying to not have this split happen.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the fancy bearer, the hackers, are targeting all of these guys.
Oh my!
It's very interesting how this is tied together. There's a lot of ins and outs that you don't know, but they've been doing like all kinds of phishing attacks, phishing attacks.
Oh, yeah.
They're clever too. Like
is that where you play fish?
It's where you play Go Fish.
Lots of,
but you throw the cards at each other.
The jam band.
Yeah,
you just
go to a fish concert.
That would be a phishing attack.
God damn it!
Just playing the music is
an attack.
Enough.
That is an attack. There was a like one of these things. We don't know who really sent this out, but in 2017, there was a new guy was taking over as a sort of director of communications. For the Orthodox Church.
Oh.
And an email went out, presumably from him or purporting to be from him.
Okay.
That basically said, hey, and it spoke in the kind of wording that they used. This was someone who knew how these guys talked.
Okay.
It's one of them. Who, sent out a thing that said, Dear hierarchs, fathers, brothers, and sisters in Christ. Recently, I've been appointed as the director of communications at the Ecumenical Patriarchate. It's been a very big joy for me to blah, blah, blah. Some suggestions and guidelines on how to build up relations with the public and the press are provided in the file attached. So click it.
Oh, boy.
And then that file, loaded...
Yeah.
Spy software onto their laptops and stuff.
Fucking hell.
They're going after these guys.
Wow.
They want info.
Wow. Well, okay. Fancy bear.
They're coming for you. It sounds like a Russian gay club.
Fancy bear. I'm a fancy bear.
Yeah.
Are you a cuddly cub?
I know a whole bunch of fancy bears, but in this case, it's not as good as it could be. Anyway, I just thought that was fascinating. It just goes to show, we on this podcast, we want to talk about religious issues, but and frankly, I would prefer not to be a political show. I would prefer not to talk about politics. I would love to avoid it entirely if I could.
But religion can't leave politics alone.
And politics won't leave religion. It's just two power structures.
Yeah.
Or a series of parallel power structures that use each other really well.
Yeah.
And, you can't even talk about religion without talking about politics. Yeah. It's impossible. And fancy bears.
Fancy bear.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if your bear is fancy and you want us to know about it, you can write to us. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com is the email address.
Or you could call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
True. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and smash that like button.
And while on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. Also, head on over to Reddit, reddit.com/r/TGIAtheist for a growing community over there.
If you go over there, it'll grow by one.
There you go. Dan, guess what,
Oh,
Dan?
I'm excited.
Jim Bakker.
Oh, that bucket of food selling motherfucker.
Bucket of fun, Jim Bakker.
He is a bucket of. He's a bucket of something.
He has some sartorial advice for his listeners.
Boy, the outlook isn't good. It's not looking good for anybody.
Is it sartorial?
I don't know that I know what that word means.
I think sartorial it has to do with clothing. It might have to do with suits. But it's stuff one wears.
Okay. When we come back from the audio break, I will know what sartorial means.
Okay.
Why don't you play the audio?
Here we go.
What's it going to take for the church to really stand up during these next election years? I'm very concerned because if we don't, God's not mocked. People in America are mocking God. We're in a serious time. There's a lady that has a shirt back there, that T-shirt. Would you say, pray for 45? I've been thinking, Lance, you are truly the wrecking ball preacher. I mean, you brought Trump right out there.
He means that in a good way.
Yes.
Yeah, he does.
I know, but I mean, because you're not afraid.
Yeah.
And you weren't afraid to stand up for Trump. Just you labeled him what God told you about him. But now this shirt she has there, I've been thinking, I don't dare wear a Trump hat. And I'm confessing it. Mm-hmm. But the evil in this country is so bad. If I was a Republican, which I had been my whole life, I couldn't wear a hat with my candidate on it without concern about being murdered in the streets. Mm-hmm. Now, come on.
Right.
What's wrong with America? Why are we putting up with this? What if every church member's got to pray for 45, made them up themselves or do something? You know, America is freedom of speech, freedom of everything, freedom of religion. And yet the Christians are cowering back and living in fear.
Well, the first thing, Dan, that I can say for sure is that Jim Bakker isn't actually selling any of these Pray for 45 shirts. Because he's like, you can make them yourself.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is that, well, okay, first of all, sartorial.
Oh, yeah.
Means of or relating to tailors or their trade.
Oh, okay.
So you were right about that, but I think the word you might have been looking for is something along the lines of like millenarial?
What is that? Oh, like
haberdasherial?
Yes.
Haberdasherial. A milliner or a haberdasher would be one who makes hats, I think.
Sure. Haberdashery.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Is there a psychological word that refers to a condition where you believe you're going to be murdered all the time? Because this guy talks about it
I know.
all the time. I am going to be murdered. I have all of these beliefs, and it's so controversial for me to believe what 60% of Americans believe, that I will be murdered in the streets.
I think he might have received a few death threats in his life. Do you think? Do you think people send him death threats?
No.
Do you think people care enough about Jim Bakker?
No.
To send a death threat?
He is ignored by everyone but old people who buy buckets.
But what about way back in the day when he was kind of a little bit more, not controversial, but there was a little bit of... a little bit of hubbub.
He probably received death threats when he sat at the wrong table in prison.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. No, I mean, he clearly... Yeah, what is this whole thing that he thinks that everybody's out to...
He loves it.
Kill him.
He
loves
it's
so extreme.
Talking about how he's going to be killed.
Right.
For his beliefs or for his hats or for his whatever. I'm afraid. I am afraid to open a bucket of food because a ninja will come out and kill me for my beliefs.
You never know what's in those buckets, though, Dan. You really don't.
You don't.
It could be anything.
Actually, maybe, or I mean, obviously, he wouldn't say that because it wouldn't sell buckets. But maybe if he made a suit of armor out of buckets, out of big 5-gallon buckets. He could walk around safely,
Right.
knowing that God's bucket armor is protecting him from the murderers that lie around every corner.
Oh my God.
Oh boy! Well, there you go. We got we have a bucket of people who wrote into us. Elliot wrote in and says, Elliot here from Salt Lake City with a comment on the Russell Nelson story.
Oh, okay.
Rusty Nelson, you'll recall, is the prophet, seer, and revelator of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. Elliot says, I served an LDS mission in Taiwan and studied Mandarin Chinese.
Oh.
This is one of the cool things about being a missionary, a Mormon, is that so many Mormons are bilingual because they went to someplace cool like Taiwan or, in your case, Rome.
Yeah. It was lovely.
Anyway,
awful.
yeah, I mean, it would have been a torturous 2 years. I'm glad I didn't go, but it would be cool to have a language.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It rattles around your head.
Yeah. Anyway, Russell Nelson, says Elliot, is also a student of Chinese.
Oh.
I'm guessing that he chose the language with the expectation that mainland China would one day open up to Mormon missionaries and the religion-starved people would convert in droves.
Oh, of course they would.
They probably would.
Yeah, sadly.
Stupid.
Maybe not to Mormonism, though.
No, they will. If that happens, they will. There will be a lot.
Yeah, but other
Not
places
everybody.
that have opened up haven't provided a flood of...
It's just
You know what I mean?
it's just as soon as they all come flooding in, they get like nobody is picking up the sort of credulous people that are just sitting around going, I don't know what I believe. Nobody's like getting to them right now. Right. But once somebody does, it's sort of a first come first serve sort of thing.
Well, that's probably true.
Anyway, Elliot continues, the translation, or more precisely transliteration of Mormon used by the church while I was a missionary sounded like Devil's Gate Church.
Nice.
It also did not help that the translation of Latter Day in the church's name was something more like Last Days, and thus had an apocalyptic feel to it.
Right.
The church has since modified the transliteration of Mormon, but it still has the syllables evoking the idea of Devil's Gate Church. They've also modified the translation of Latter Day in the church's name to sound less apocalyptic. In my imagination, the negative associations with the Chinese translation of Mormon weigh on Nelson's mind when he thinks about the name of the church, and perhaps more so as he thinks about the inevitable future of Mormonism in China. I could be wrong. Love the show. Best to you. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That he learned that it had a bad connotation. It, like that, those sounds mean something bad in Chinese, and was like, "Well, we can't use that."
Right. Well, all right.
That's interesting. Who knows?
You go, Rusty Nelson.
Yeah. Why don't you? Do we have a voicemail?
We do have a voicemail. This is from a listener who's responding to our trunk or treat, our sort of Halloween traditions and Mormons.
Yeah, we talked about this
willingness to fuck it all up
happening in Australia.
Yeah.
Which is so sad.
And so this is his experience.
Okay.
Over in this neck of the woods
Around here.
Hey, Frank and Dan. This is Travis from the Seattle, Washington area. Hey, just wanted to call, say I love the podcast. And you guys were talking about the Mormon tradition of trunk or treat recently. And I just wanted to give my perspective on it. I grew up in Bountiful, Utah, the only non-Mormon family on my block. And when I was young, it was great. Everybody in the neighborhood would trick or treat. Everybody was going door to door. And it was a whole lot of fun for everybody, and everybody was included. And when I got to be a little bit older, probably even after my time, but my brother was still going around and trick-or-treating. But when I got to be like a teenager, they started doing trunk or treats at the Mormon church down the street. And slowly by slowly, all of the kids in the neighborhood stopped trick-or-treating. So my parents would go out and buy a whole bunch of candy, and nobody would come to the house. And my brother would want to go out and trick or treat, and he'd be knocking on doors left and right, and nobody would be home. they'd all be at the trunk or treat or just not participating. So aside from it being just a weird tradition, it was also something that kind of left other kids from other faiths or kids with no faiths, kind of left them out. So it's a silly, dumb little thing, but that's how it can affect people of other faiths and people of no faiths. Thank you guys again for the podcast. I listen every week. Thanks again.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm mad. That really pisses me off.
Well, because like also what's annoying about it is that like, first of all, trick-or-treating has never been like this dangerous thing.
No.
The whole poison candy thing was like...
It was a lie.
It was a total scare thing.
Yeah.
It was a big
There were never any there were never razor blades in anybody's candy.
Right. And so anyway, but trunk or treat is obviously some sort of response to the dangerous world that we live in, and let's let it just be the people that we intimately know.
Oh my God.
And let the kids wander around and we have a little party thing, right?
I'm so mad.
And so Bountiful, Utah is one of the fucking safest places probably in the world.
It's physically safe. It is not psychologically safe.
No, exactly. But like as far as like your kids are not going to like that. And also, like, it's people... anyway, the whole, like, poison candy thing. Like you're not going to find... Like, that's the way somebody chooses to, like...
To poison... Yeah.
To fuck with people?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And also, okay, you know what needs to happen? If you live in one of these neighborhoods where this has happened to you...
Right.
I don't care.
Everything's gone trunk or treat, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's time to bring back the tricks.
Oh.
It's time to reinstate the trick policy.
Yeah.
Because this whole trick-or-treating thing happened because the kids were enforcing, you have to give me candy, or I will egg your house.
Right, the kid union.
Yeah, exactly. They got together and they were like, look, you can give me a treat or I will trick you.
Right.
And the tricks are not nice.
Right. Flaming bags of poo on
go crazy.
Front porches. That one's dangerous. Don't do it.
Well, you know what? Sometimes a little danger has to be brought into this thing. All I'm saying is this is not acceptable behavior.
No.
You must have treats for the kids.
Absolutely.
And you must participate, and there should be consequences if you don't.
I feel bad for Travis, or at least Travis's younger brother or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it just wasn't known. If you live in along the Wasatch Front and you want to take your kids trick-or-treating, but nobody really does it in your neighborhood, Rose Park, people.
Yeah?
Rose Park is insane. Do you have an experience? I mean, this is your neighborhood.
There's a lot of kids. I'm just saying, like, my traditional thing was go to the like fancy neighborhoods where they gave out the full-size candy bars.
Those places may not be doing that anymore. And if you just want to take your kids trick-or-treating, the number of kids out there trick-or-treating in Rose Park is insane.
Yeah, you'll have fun.
I'm just saying. It might be
worth the trip.
Yeah, I think it probably would be.
There you go. All right. Chance wrote into us on the same topic. This is a different take on that. Hey guys, you were talking about the trunk or treating phenomenon, and we get that here in Texas too. However, when I was going to a private evangelical school, you poor bastard, we had what we called a hallelujah party.
Oh no.
Enough of the teachers and parents were concerned about the demonic influence of Halloween that they decided to make it their own. In each teacher's room in the combination school church, the teacher would set up a small carnival-style game you had to play to get a candy.
Oh, fun.
Beanbag toss, shooting a candle out with a water pistol, knocking over bottles. Usually you didn't walk away with a lot of candy, as you were only allowed to take one candy from a room, or if you sucked at, or especially if you sucked at games like I did. Oh, you have to win the game to get a candy? That's, God. Reinstitute the tricks.
Right.
The tricks have to come back. If the grown-ups are being stingy, you got to do the tricks. Anyway, I know a couple of kids listen to this show. Kids, get out there, do your tricks.
Organize your friends.
There was usually Christian music playing in the rooms, too. I only ever got to go legitimately trick-or-treating twice in my life. Oh. Love the show. Keep up the awesome. Yeah, you international listeners for whom Halloween is not a big thing, there are people in these United States who don't love it, but I think Halloween is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's such a delight. And apparently it's getting ruined.
Yeah.
By Christians.
It was so much fun as a kid.
I loved it.
Getting dressed up in some nonsense costume. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? And then just running around with a pillowcase.
Yeah. And they just
getting it filled up with candy.
They just throw candy in it. And and every house you go to, everybody's like, oh, and you're a little lizard and you're a monster. And what are you? Oh, my goodness. And they're all fawning over you. And it's just this fun interaction. And you feel
magical.
And you feel connected to the neighborhood. And
everybody's out and running around.
It's a little spooky. You get to feel a little spooky. It's fun.
Oh, poor kids these days.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got some folks who have given. Every now and then, when we pass around the collection plate, some people have ponied up.
Yeah, indeed.
And I'm going to start us off because I've got one. We had someone
fantastic
come at it through the PayPal route, which is still available to people. Jamar is now a PayPal subscriber, I believe, at the Saint level. So Saint Jamar, we bless thee.
That's
what else?
Wonderful.
What else we got?
Well, we also have a Jamar.
Oh,
over here.
Maybe Jamar has done it
on
twice.
Patreon, coming in at the Pope level.
What? Jamar?
Yeah. Jamar.
You're. It's madness. It's Jamar madness. You should probably cancel one of them, but if you want to leave them both running,
or maybe it's two people.
Jamar?
It's totally possible.
We've got two Jamars.
We have two Jamars. And then there's Andrew coming in at the venerable level. So thank you to both of you. All three of you.
All three of you.
And then, of course, Dan.
Yes.
We have our Lord and Savior Emeritus that we have to thank.
Blessed be she.
Angela.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Angela. And then our current reigning Lord and Savior.
Supreme.
Our top donor, Jenny.
I still don't like it, but I love Jenny. We'll come to it. We'll get there.
That's what I've settled on, Dan. How dare you?
Okay.
How dare you, Dan?
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open it up to Jenny. She can write in and say what she likes.
Okay, fine.
She's the Lord and Savior. We take her commands. Anyway,
is my calling of your name not pleasing unto thee?
Unto thee, and thy ears.
Perhaps a burnt offering.
Ooh, yeah,
a sweet
savor unto our Lord and Savior. Anyway, thank you all so much. We so appreciate it. If you guys want to join in. If you appreciate what we do and you want to be part of it, please feel free to go to thankgodimatheist.com and click on the support tab, and we bless all of you in the name of the people that don't exist. Amen.
Amen. All right, Dan.
I'm pulling up a thing here because here's the thing.
Enemies.
Here's the thing.
Enemies. Isn't there a song about me and my
enemy?
I don't know.
That's me and my shadow. I know that one. Here's the thing. I was thinking about Christianity, and I was thinking about religion as a whole, and I was thinking about the fact that it's always set up in this sort of war. There's always a war, and there's always enemies.
Yeah.
Just a really random Google search came up with an interesting Billy Graham article that he wrote last year about enemies of the Christian.
Oh, good God, yeah.
Starts with the devil. He's got a whole bunch of stuff about that.
Well, because the devil's is your ultimate enemy.
He is,
right?
He's God's enemy.
Yeah.
So then he's our enemy,
right?
De facto.
Right. And so anybody who has sort of fallen to the devil's,
ways
must also be your enemy.
Well, and here's the thing, because what could make more sense than an omnipotent, all-knowing being who creates all the things in the universe, creating his own enemy on purpose to be his enemy.
Enemies are good.
He's like, what do I need? I'm bored.
I need an adversary.
Somebody needs to be fighting me.
Right.
I need a fight.
Yeah, it's
An omnipotent, all-loving being needs a good fight.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I need to feel undermined.
Billy Graham's next, want to guess who his next enemy is?
Who?
The world.
The world?
The whole world.
Well,
Your second enemy is the world.
well, yeah, the world.
The world means,
All
oh
of
my
its
God,
influences.
listen to this sentence. In his explaining of what the world is.
Uh-huh.
The world means the cosmos, this world system. The world has a tendency to lead us into sin, evil companions, pleasures, fashions, opinions, and aims.
Yes.
Fashion.
Fashion, Dan.
Oh,
It's evil.
it's evil.
It's an enemy of God.
Yeah,
Looking good, Dan.
The whole fucking cosmos is your enemy.
Uh-huh.
Melodramatic much? Are you serious? And then the third enemy,
Uh-huh.
you.
Yourself?
Which is to say, the flesh.
Ew. Get this flesh off me.
Right? The worst enemy, one of the worst enemies you've got is your own body.
Your body's always working against you, Dan.
It's
It's got these urges, Dan.
I'm over 40. My body has started working against me in a very different way now.
Your urges.
The urges aren't a problem. The urges aren't a problem anymore.
Oh, yeah?
Now it's more the errant hair and the inability to bound upstairs the way I once could.
Oh, no, Dan. Seriously?
It's you start down the hill.
You just need to get one of those chairs. Dan.
I'll be up in a minute. Still trying.
Your chair situation in this house would be rough.
This house is not made for that. Nope. Which is funny because this is a 55 and older community. Hilarious. Anyway, it got me thinking about enemies as a concept and about how we are all raised to believe in the concept that we have enemies,
right?
And to believe that those enemies are that we are fighting. That there's a fight. There's always a fight, and it feels like it goes beyond just religion. It feels like it goes into sort of like the American psyche.
I think it's the world psyche.
There's enemies. We all have enemies.
There's always threat. We're programmed, and we're very susceptible to it. I'm sure, just in sort of
in an evolutionary
way, that there are threats out there that we have to protect ourselves from. Right. And so the religious preachers are able to prey upon our susceptibility to that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the fact of the matter is, there are threats in the world. There absolutely are. They're not wrong to point out that there are those in the world who would do us wrong.
Yes,
but the way they see it is some sort of eternal struggle between right and wrong, between good and evil,
right?
And that they are targeted constantly.
And I am good
on this, like this moral cleanliness sort of level, right? That you have to, you're fighting against these things that would make you impure and would tempt you to.
The whole world is against you.
Yeah, everything.
The world, your own body,
right,
is against you.
Right, which is a terrifying prospect.
Yeah, and psychologically, like, I can't imagine a more damaging notion.
Right.
Then your body is your enemy.
Right.
The world is your enemy.
Right.
And so I wanted to talk, one of the things that I want to talk about is how I think that this idea is wrong. I think that I like talking about threats. There are threats in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
There are human beings that will do you harm.
Absolutely.
There are bears. There are
fancy bears too.
There are fancy bears. Fancy bears can do you harm too.
Oh yeah.
There are sharks. Anyway, the point is there are threats. There are things out there. There are people that will hurt you. Mm-hmm. But I don't. I think that the psychology of me versus my enemy, I think that might be wrong. I think that might be a non-viable or a less healthy approach to the universe. Whereas
it's setting things up in a sort of a black and white binary thinking sort of way.
Yeah, this sort of moralistic idea that, like, you know, there's someone out there, because, you know, there are people who have committed, you know, you look at someone like, you try and think of the monsters of our society. You think of a Jeffrey Dahmer or something. Right. Well, guess what? He's fucking mentally ill.
Yeah.
He's not choosing that. He's not choosing that illness. He's not choosing the idea. You know, I read some stuff about Dahmer. He hated the fact that he was a murderer.
But boy, did he do it.
But he did it, and he needed to do it.
Holy crap.
I mean, and that's an extreme case. But also, you know, there are guys on the street who who might attack you. You know, there are people that I'm wary of and that I don't want to have a conversation with and that I will avoid, right? Because they're like getting sketchy out on. You know, I'm walking down the street, they're walking towards me, and they're sketch,
right?
And I don't want to. I just don't want to interact with that, right? Because there's a threat level there,
right?
But that doesn't make that person my enemy. I want that person to get help.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I want good things for that person. I don't want to interact with you on the street. I'm not in a position to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a police officer. I'm not someone who is armed or who is trained in fighting or whatever in case you attack me.
Right.
So I'm going to avoid you, but I want good things for that person.
Right.
And I think that's part of the thing is, like, when I think about, you know, when I'm thinking about an abusive spouse or an abusive parent or whatever, I want people out of their harm. I want to keep people out of harm's way.
Right.
But also that person probably comes from a place of having been wounded themselves, having been, you know, probably were abused themselves, or somehow they received some sort of psychic wound.
Right.
That is that is driving them to this.
But what would we do, say, Dan, about the folks in this world who would do us harm through legislation,
right?
Taking away rights.
Yeah.
You know, when we start to get out there and fight for our rights, those people are on the opposite end of this argument, right? Or of this issue.
Absolutely.
From me, from us, right? And like, that person is not an enemy?
I don't know. See, and that's why I want this to just
it's kind
be
of a funny word. The more you
discussion.
say it, the weirder it starts to sound.
Yeah.
Right?
Because here's the thing. I know a lot of people who believe some very fundamentally different things from what I believe, but I can find a lot of common ground with them as well.
Right.
And I can even know them to be a good person,
right,
whose views I believe are wildly incorrect.
A good person outside of the harm that they do in the world.
Well, here's the thing. I can believe that a person who is devoutly religious, who was raised in a religion and who believes that, and who is fighting tooth and nail against gay rights, I can still believe that that person is actually a good person. They just have been indoctrinated into a system of beliefs that is damaging.
Right.
And it's their ideology that I'm opposed to.
Right.
And it's their the problem is that when we see another person, I guess here's where I'm coming from. It's not that I don't know that it's not that I'm saying for sure that we don't have enemies.
Right.
It's that when I see the person as my enemy and not the ideology.
Right.
When I see the thinking, when I see the human being as my enemy and not the thinking, then I'm cutting myself off from them.
Right.
Then I'm saying, no, you and I are separate.
Right.
And I think common ground is what wins. At least, okay, so in my personal experience, what I will say is, when I've seen people flop from being religious bigot to, holy shit, you know what? I found out that my son is gay, and I changed my opinion.
Right.
Because there's someone that I love who is connected, to whom I'm connected,
right,
who has helped me understand this, it's because of connection that they changed their thing. It's not because of the fight.
Right.
The rhetoric from the other side, from an enemy. You're not going to listen to the rhetoric from an enemy.
Right.
And listening is what wins. Listening is what makes the world better.
Right.
Well, so I just fucking hate the notion of enemies as a human.
It seems like people in certain positions in our society, obviously, not to be conspiracy thinking or anything like that, but like they clearly benefit from the dichotomy that they've created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Like it's important for the powers that be in this country and our society to keep us against one another right now.
Absolutely. And I think that's a brilliant thing to point out, because their greatest ally is that dichotomy.
Oh, yeah.
And when we play into their dichotomy, they're winning. Even if we're fighting them.
They're our enemy.
What's that? They're our enemy. I think that's the point. I think
there are bad actors in the world. Truly bad folk.
Absolutely.
Right? Who are not working for our collective best interest.
Right.
And I don't have any problem being against those people.
Well, my big thing
but our neighbors, the people that we have contact with, the people who we can influence, even if they are diametrically, opposite of or hold very opposing views of the world and have very different goals for our society and everything. Like, that's what I'm hearing you say is downplay that.
Well, yeah, what I'm
saying, bring those people back into.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what I'm saying is that, like, the more we see people who just disagree with us as our enemy, the more we see the person as our enemy, the more we're just further dividing humans, and that means we live in a divided world, and I don't know that that's helpful. I think we are at our best when we can have an honest and open discussion with each other without screaming and yelling. You know what I mean? Without hate.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going back to Jesus on this. The whole love thy enemy, turn the other cheek. It's not about letting them get away with stuff that's hurting you. Mm-hmm. You can call them on that, but you can also come at it from a point of view of, like, I get it. You're a human being. You have a background. You have a history that has led you to this point. And I don't know what that history is. Because I, as a human, used to believe that gay people were committing a sin. I used to hold that belief. And I used to hold the belief that like, I was confused because I knew some gay people and they were fine, they were nice. But I knew that they were sinners, and I knew that they were bad. I was told that they were bad people for doing this. And I was, there were times, there was a time in my life when I thought that people who smoked were bad people, were evil.
They are bad people.
And people who drink alcohol, bad people.
No, good people.
The point is, like, there are lots of ways in which people act badly. And there are lots of ways in which we need to protect ourselves from people who act badly.
Right.
I have a real hard time getting to that person as my enemy.
Well, all right.
The way they're acting, I need to protect myself from.
But the natural man is not an enemy of God.
No. He's just a doofus. and I can be sensitive to that. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that I personally, that's meaningful to me. That I know that guy's just an idiot who was raised in a stupid religion, and he doesn't fucking, he hasn't examined his thoughts, and he's scared to. And that fear makes sense to me.
Right.
And he's come to horrible conclusions that I have to fight. I have to fight his ideology.
Right.
Because fucking it's hurting people.
Right. Antisocial ideas about humanity.
Yeah.
Essentially.
But also, like, that he's a guy.
Right.
Or she's a woman. She's a human. I think I can't throw that away. With the word enemy.
Well, there you go, Dan.
Yeah, okay. Now everybody's going to be like, fuck that! And I'm going to get a lot of emails. But that's okay. Send them on. We'll talk about it. The email address, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message.
Yeah.
Be angry. Call Dan out. Call the show out. Call both of us out.
At me on voicemail.
424-666-8442 is the number.
Yeah, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Maybe don't ream Mackenzie for this. This is not her problem. But she's great. And also, there's the TGIA Members Only Lounge.
Right, and hop on over to Reddit. Reddit.com/r/TGIAtheist is how you find our subreddit.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Facebook, thanks so much to Mackenzie for all of her hard work on the Facebook page, and thanks to Amy, Sarah, and Danny for their work as moderators in the Members Only Lounge.
And a big thanks goes out to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music, and to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
Yeah, thanks again to our patrons, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Bye-bye.